Now here's part 2 of the same video that we were working with here, and we notice that we actually found our entry coming in here. Now this would have been filled closer to the 97 mark as it ran through here. But the way the simulator works, or whatever this is, it just waits for the close of the bar and then brings you in something like that. So now we noticed that we had another bar here and we have another bar here. Now if we're looking at overall volumes of bars, this is a very strong bar. So it's going to take a lot of momentum to drive the bar back under to this 0 mark. This was a planned buy, in other words, is what I would call this. And the reason I call this a planned buy is that you can see areas, footprints of the sand, right? Here's one here. Here's another here. Here's another here. Here's another here. And it looks like they finished the buy program, or whatever you want to talk about here, on this particular bar right here. Now they knew they couldn't buy all at one time, because they knew they're going to drive the market down on their buys. So they wanted to see all of this as they're bringing this market in. They're selling to bring into the same individual, I guess. It's kind of weird when you think about it, but it's kind of an epiphany, and the light starts to go off every so often. They are buying more contracts than they're selling, is what I'm trying to get at. So whoever this moving force is, and I'm not saying I know because I don't, their plan was to sell into this so that they could buy back. And they had a target mark that they said, all right, when we get to this, we want to buy. We're buyers. But along this lines, maybe there's a partner here. There could be two guys. The way I used to look at it, me and my partner, when we wanted to drive a market, I would be buying into it while he's selling into that. But for instance, let's say, that's probably the easiest way of looking at it. Let's say I have 1,000 contracts I want to bring in, and he's got 500 that he's willing. So we're netting 500 basically is what it comes down to. We're going to go net 500 long is what when all the buying and selling's done, we want to be net 500 long. So what we do is we drive the market the direction that we want to basically buy into. And you got to be careful, because it's not, make sure it's not driven into some kind of an event or whatever, but you're looking at a market that you can drive yourself into the market. Now as a small account trader, you really can't join in. Well, I guess you could join in on the crowd if you knew what they were doing, but the footprints in the sand's not going to lie, is what I'm getting at. They're going to show themselves by the footprints in the sand, because although this is a trade chart, and once again we talked about trades and tick chart, they're going to show themselves by in this case a 200 trade or tick chart. You would think that there would be volume of 200 on each bar. That's not true. This bar here is double that. They've moved 475. You say, how can they move 475 contracts on a 200 trade bar? Well, each individual trader is moving into the market. So instead of them bringing in one contract, they might be bringing in 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 lot right in here. So one trader comes in here with 100 lot. Let's just put it that way. 100, 100, 100, and they finish off their buying here with 200. So they got 500 net at this point right here. Now they're long at this point from here going into here, and they're averaging in this area, right in this area, and they're long and they're buy. So I'm hoping that makes some kind of sense, because this is what the traders are doing. There's a lot of value here at this mark here. I mean, if you knew for sure this was the bottom, this would be the ultimate mark to try to get them. But this was a low, this was a prior low, That was a prior low. So if you're trying to catch the lows, you're down 1, 2, 3, 4 times before you finally find something that actually works out for you. So it can be a very, very expensive proposition, because I've tried to catch the low, and I thought, well, how else can we see the footprints of the sand and then find the opportunity to move in with them? Now, we had mentioned that this mark here, as it goes into the mean of the highway, could be a possible long signal. Let's say that you had 3 contracts, for instance, that you wanted to join into the party with. Well, maybe you're joining in with 1 or 2 at this point, and you're ending your buy sequence up here on this 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, and we're on the 2 going to 3 wave at this point. At least that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that the strength behind this move is we're going to bring our market in here, and we're going to bring our trading into it so that we can take advantage of this movement that's going on by the technicals that are in front of you, the volume. If we look over here at the technical signals here, we see that we've crossed over right in here on our red line. So we see that the red line area is a great place to be bringing ourselves into the market. That's where we kind of brought in ourselves right in here. Let me bring my mark here so that you see where I was buying. I was a buyer in this area. See that we noticed that our blue line was here, and we're coming in. We're seeing that this is coming through. That's orange line here that we drew. Whoops, I'll have to fix that later. Let me get rid of that one. Hold on, I want to get rid of that one. I'll take care of that later. But you see that we've got the horizontal. I'll take care of that later. So we have the horizontal lines all kicking in. We have the volume kicking in. We have our technicals on the side here, our indicators here kicking in. The whole movement is sound at this point. We notice that we finally see a green bar here on our charts kicking in. This whole movement looks sound, and this is where I would challenge that this is the mark that you want to put yourself in and attempt. Now, it can fail, but in my humble opinion, you've got enough evidence. If you're stacking the evidence up and you're stacking your facts up, this is where I want to try to attempt this long. So I can't remember what happens in this day. Yeah, I'm sure you're saying, yeah, sure, David, you don't know. But this is where I want to try this movement. I mean, I could be a loser on this point and take it all out, or I could win, you know. So but technically speaking, in the odds and trying to take a high probability setup, here's where I want to be in the market. This is where I find value. I find value right in here. Now, you're saying, oh, it's Friday. The market can do anything on a Friday. That's correct. The market can do anything on a Friday, but if it's going to move, and if it's going to move long, it's going to be now. You know, it's just the way, the nature of the beast. It's going to be now. 9806. Let me plug in here, because I want to make sure we're catching enough of this long here. I think that was 9806 in here. I'm just averaging out my contracts here at this point. Okay, that's a net of 97.92 between the two. Now notice I just traded 2 on this. Now I could 97.70 is where I want to try to come out of this move. We'll call it 71. And obviously we can be wrong. Which we are on this case. So but that was a better position to try to catch this. And we ended up taking a loss here. But if you're trying to catch a bottom, you've got to understand what is being presented in front of you. I would probably attempt another long above this mark again. That's where I would find value. I would find value. Let me speed this. Let me bring this down. This is where I would find value. I believe that that was kind of a shakeout before we move to the long side on this particular trade, and I would want to, whoops, let me bring this down here to 1 times so I can get my buy-in. This is where I want to be. I want to be long in this area. This is where I find value, at that 97.97 mark. Now I could be obviously wrong, but when you're trying to catch the knife, in this case, trying to catch it, sometimes the market is going to prove you wrong. You're going to come into the trade to your best of your ability, and you're going to put out what you believe is a valid way of looking at it, and the market is not going to cooperate with you. And that's just the nature of the game. I mean, you can't win everything. I wish we could. I wish trading was like such an exact science that you could say this happens, and therefore but trading's not an if-then type of statement. I mean, you do the best you can. We can see that we've forming the bottom here. We didn't expect this further shakeout here. This could be what we consider a 3-point right in here in this particular movement, and we can consider this maybe even a 4 move here, where we got out on our movement. So the shakeout could be still in here, and we're waiting for, in this case, we got the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 going to 5. We want to see that last move, the one that's going to take off and profit us. And whether it does or doesn't, I don't remember how this trading day all works out, but I can look at this particular mark in the sand here, where we're still back here looking at the 636. As a day trader, I know I'm going to have losses, and I know that's going to happen. I'm still looking at this. I'm liking the technical setup of this whole trading day. This is looking fantastic. It's just the way I want to see it come in. So we have our movement here, and then we have our long signal that we're trying to bring out here, up here. So this, in my humble opinion, is a very valid trade setup. Sometimes it takes one loss to take on before you get the direction that you want to go. There was no reason, I mean, if you draw your trend line here, it's just a very, very, very kind setup going on right here. It's looking like it wants to move to the long side. Whether it does or doesn't, well, I don't know. But this is where we found value this whole time, right in here, and we believe that we're going to catch something. And for what it's worth, this is how I approach trading. I look at it as scientifically as I can, but knowing that I can be wrong, have an out point, and go for the next trade setup. So for instance, if we were only trading one contract, we would have had one loss here, and we're looking for this to be our move to bring us all out up here on this top. Now I can't remember if it runs all the way up there or not, just can't remember. But this was a valid setup. Here's where we want to get in between here and get our 1P move, whatever 97.97 is. This is where we want to be halfway in between the two at 98.25. Here's the way we approach the trade, where we protect our position, we move forward, and we take advantage of what we think is the bottom. This should be filled up there at the high. So running into the 15-minute mark, hopefully this was informative to you and how I approach my trading day. This is Dave Knight here. We'll talk to you later. Bye now.